Hi guys, recently someone asked me if I would consider doing tutorials, so today I'm going to be doing a tutorial / time-lapse of me painting several mountain stylized landscapes. On the screen now you're seeing some examples of stylized landscapes that I've done in the past. They're not all mountains, but basically how I do these is I use a reference picture, pick out the very basic shapes from it, and then make those into a sketch and then into a final drawing. You're seeing some sketches and some final drawings here. The thing that I think is really important is to do your trees a certain way or your grass a certain way. I use watercolors to do these. Today I'm using my Mission Gold watercolors, and I also use some colored pencils, watercolor pencils, and various round paintbrushes. I really prefer round paintbrushes over flat ones or angled ones for watercolor just because that's what I'm used to using and that's what I usually go with. So I'm doing 4 different little landscapes in this video, and they're all mountains and they're all using the same color palette. So as you can see here, first I drew out the trees just as ovals, and then the mountains just as triangles, the sun's just a circle, and then I erased my pencil lines to make them lighter since I am using watercolor and it won't cover them up. One thing that I think is also important when doing stylized landscapes like this is using a limited color palette. This is important in any kind of artwork, I believe. But I used a warm blue. This is the cerulean blue, maybe. I'm not even sure. It's the warm blue from the Mission Gold palette I have. And I also used a pink, which is kind of like a permanent rose color. And I used a little bit of a purple just to get some darker purple hues in here, but that's about it. Those are the only colors I used. When it comes to colored pencils, you'll see in a little bit I used quite a few more colors, but that's basically my process. As I said, there's going to be 4 different little landscapes in here, so you'll be able to see this process 4 times over, just with different compositions. I'm not showing the sketching part, but I did sketch out the compositions of each of these first. Some of them I had already done paintings in the same composition of, but these 4 are going to be part of a little project where they're going to be displayed together, so I needed to kind of redesign them on the same size little sheets of paper. I'm just using Canson watercolor paper. It's not anything fancy. I think that's pretty much all I have to say. You'll see me do the colored pencils in a little bit. First I do all the watercolor and then I make sure it's completely dry before I go in with my colored pencils. Also, there's a couple clips of painting missing throughout this video, just because of how my camera stopped recording and I didn't catch it. So when it comes to colored pencils, I use both watercolor pencils and regular colored pencils, because the watercolor pencils are more opaque and creamier, kind of, they show up better over the watercolor. So I use the blue and red out of those, and then also some various pinks and purples out of my polychromos and prang colored pencils. I just use these to shade, do little dashed lines for texture. I use it for drawing plants and trees and all sorts of other things. forgot to mention, although you already probably saw it in the last little clip, is that I use a glitter pen to do the highlights on the highlighted side, judging on where the sun is in my picture or where I'm imagining the sun is. And then I use just another wash to illustrate the shadows. As you'll see now, these shadows aren't like completely realistic, it's just what worked out best, and I wasn't going for realism with the lighting. Realistically, these shadows would be kind of on the lower part of the cliffs, but we're just going with it. On this one, I did something more abstract with the sun when I used the colored pencils. You'll see in a second, where I did kind of dashed lines across it, and I did this once before when I painted the same type of composition with warmer colors. You might have seen that picture earlier at the beginning of the video. And I just think this brings more of like the stylized look into the picture. I don't really have like a set process for doing each of these. I have like set color combos I like to use and that kind of thing, but other than that, it's just kind of, you know, whatever happens, whatever happens, happens. I have certain ways of doing my trees, whether they're in the background or foreground, or whether they're like pine trees or like other kinds of trees. I have certain kind of line plants I like to do, and little ferns sort of things, but other than that, everything else just kind of is whatever fits with the composition. I get some ideas from the reference picture, and sometimes I'll look up like doodled plants on Pinterest, and someone will have like a whole sheet of like ideas for plant doodles, and I'll get kind of inspiration from that. But everything else just kind of comes from my head, whatever happens while I'm painting. So that's the whole process, and I think that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. There's still a little bit left, so I'm just going to play some music, and I will see you next time.